this is Margaret Hershey on The Move with Margaret, and here I am in my podcast where I interview women who inspire me in the hopes that they'll inspire you. As women out there, our life is tough, there's no doubt about it, and every day you can get something thrown at you that you weren't expecting. But just to know what other women have gone through in their lives and come out the other side, it's just so amazing. Today I have one of my very dearest friends, Anne-Marie Chelin, who's talking to us from Brisbane in Australia. So here I am I think where I am in Pompano Beach, Florida, with Shane sitting in Cape Town and Anne-Marie in Brisbane, and we're having this amazing conversation. So I hope it's going to be amazing anyway. So Anne-Marie, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you on here.
Margaret, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to come and have a chat with you at this time. And what a topic.
Yes, well, it is. We're here to inspire other women who are going through a lot. Now, let's just go back to the young Anne-Marie growing up, because, I mean, I know you so well, but all the people listening don't know you, don't know where you've come from. So tell us a bit about you. And I was always so envious of you because I always wanted a sister, and you had two sisters and two brothers. How amazing is that? And so, yeah, tell us a bit about you growing up and what it was like, and right through to when you met Ivan, and that's really changed your life.
Oh, it absolutely did. But yeah, I come from a big family, and I had a wonderful childhood, something that I always valued. Growing up on the South Coast in Natal was great. I then moved to Durban, and with a good education behind me, my parents having instilled in me that I could take on whatever the world gave to me. And I think this was quite interesting in the background to my meeting my dear husband, Ivan. Ours has been a very unusual marriage, but it just goes to show that unusual partnerships that people might sort of frown upon to start with can work out wonderfully, because here we are a good few years later.
Well, it's just incredible because it was his second marriage, and you two have been married now for 50 years, over 50 years. So it just goes to show you can make it work, and second marriages can work out. And but you were very young, and he was much older than you. Tell us about falling in love with an older man who had been married already, and then when you took him home to meet your parents, what did they say?
I'll tell you about that, but I'll tell you when I first met him, because the fact that he was older, it was inconsequential to me. I think, Margaret, when you look at it, you'll totally agree that marriage back in the day of our generation was a very different kettle of fish to what it is today. So when I met my husband, we were working together, and it was, he had me at hello. I just looked at him. He was very good looking. He was charismatic. He was hugely popular. And he was just extremely hot, and a bit like chocolate. I just loved him at first sight.
I think that's the most amazing thing about both of us, is we both met our husbands, and it was both love at first sight, and we both lasted over 50 years. And what I'm going to say to the women out there is, you can't just say, meet a man and think, oh, he's quite nice and that. You absolutely have to fall in love with him. And there's a big difference between being in love with someone and absolutely falling in love with them. You absolutely have to go. It has to be 110%. It's got to be so fantastic. And if it's like that, you can make it work, and you can make it through the hard times, because they're going to be hard times, and you're going to have to weather them and just work through them. So, but what I love about you is you always start every conversation with, I had to laugh, and you always laugh at everything that's going on. So tell us a bit how you've managed to navigate life through all your ins and outs and all the ups and downs with just laughing at everything.
Margaret, I think humor is a huge part of our lives, and we've got to make humor a daily and regular occurrence. And I think I probably learned more about laughter from my dear husband, Ivan. Ivan has a wonderful sense of humor. Back then, I look at it, one of the appealing factors was he was so charismatic and could be the sort of the life and soul of any party in any situation. And I was possibly more conservative at the time. And here I am. He's taught me to laugh through everything. Let's face it, in any marriage, you have your huge ups and downs. And we'll talk about those because marriage is two people coming together that have strengths and weaknesses that they have to acknowledge in each other. But
Yes.
his were mostly strengths.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Now, he was playing in a band. He's a jazz pianist, and he was playing in a band when you met him. And did you sort of feel like a groupie going along to listen to him play? Because I mean, we've had the most amazing times, and I always laugh because when he used to play at New Year's Eve parties, we would have our own party at home, and then just before midnight, we would all go down there, troop along with all our children and our husbands and everything, and all our friends, and just gate crash the New Year's Eve party he was playing at, and have the most wonderful New Year's Eve. And whenever it's New Year's Eve, I think of those days because it was just so fantastic. But tell us about him playing in the band and you just tripping around with him and listening to him all the time.
It was so exciting and so many events to attend. I remember at one stage I had 14 long evening dresses in my cupboard. Yeah, it was sort of a party every weekend, as you well remember. They were really good days, and but that brings me to the whole thing of strengths and weaknesses within a marriage and different people. And I think people have to be open and I would say so flexible, because there was he, a sort of celebrated musician, and then there was I, who didn't even know where middle C on the piano was. And I was the groupie, as you said. And yeah, with that sort of celebrity status that he enjoyed, along came that ugly little thing called a bit of jealousy. And that was a whole new thing that I had to navigate. And I think this just leads us into the whole concept of marriage and how we do have to navigate. And you can't do anything like, I'm sure most people out there have said, oh, well, he's like this, but I'll change him.
Oh, yeah.
There's no changing. There's no change. And so I think the reality is that one has to know that maybe marriage is about compromise and you have strengths and weaknesses. And at the end of the day, no one's going to change but you. But the thing is, it's your responsibility to take control of just how much you'd be prepared to change.
They say if you don't like the way things are, you have a choice. Either you can change or you can just accept it, but then you can never change what they're going to do. And the other thing I always tell women is that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Sometimes you get invited to an argument and you just have to keep your trap shut. And I think that for a lot of women can be, make or break.
Absolutely. And when I think of the whole topic of arguments, if you think about it, here you have two human beings that are totally different and they've come together, and suddenly there's a sort of weird expectation that you're not going to argue. That's not going to happen, really, because arguments are going to be there. I mean, how could you possibly expect to spend your life with someone that you spend every day, every meal, share the same bedroom, and then someone actually has to clean up the fridge when the milk has leaked, and you're going to look at each other and say, well, whose turn is it now? So arguments are going to be there, but you've got to navigate them. And I think in those early days, it's been quite a good exercise looking back. One actually thinks about how you look at those potential arguments and you put them into the landscape of your marriage. So you know this is going to anger my partner. Yeah. Or if he does that, it's going to anger me. And you hope that he's actually taking on board the same topography of the marriage landscape so that you end up in a happy place. And I think that's possibly what happened with us, yes, with a whole lot of luck thrown in.
Yeah, I think a lot of luck has to be thrown, and a lot of just knowing when to speak and when not to speak. I think that's it. And also taking control of your emotions, because sometimes it's such an emotional thing that your emotions really carry you away. But, and then how Anne-Marie and I met is so that, is we both had our children at the same time. They were born within a month of each other. And we met at antenatal classes, which they used to have in those days, where you would take your baby down and they would weigh them. And when I think back on all of the things that we used to do, they don't even do that today. We would all go down and they'd weigh the babies and we'd all have tea together. And that's how we met. So our children are the same age and they've stayed close over all these years. So just talk to us about bringing up a successful child in this difficult world. You were so lucky because she was such a clever girl. And but did it just happen, or did you make it happen? And I always say that parents guide their children to be successful or not successful. Talk to us about that.
Wow, that's a big question, Margaret. And I think the methodology that I adopted was from day one. Ivan and I shared the involvement. He was a busy working man at the time, and yet from day one, when he came home from work, it was his turn to ask our gorgeous baby, and that was it. And so there was that total mutual focus, which I think had a very big part to play, because if you look at it otherwise and you look at the arrival of a child, and for some couples it can be like a bomb exploding, really, because you were a twosome and then suddenly you're a threesome, and it changes the whole dynamic of your relationship. So the two of us being totally involved, and as they always say, when you have a child that does excel in various things, you claim it as your child, but the father claims it as his child and the mother claims it as her child, yeah, because of the good spin-off. Yeah, I think, Margaret, also education is just a huge thing. And then you see where education leads to when you get married, or your children's marriages, or any young person's marriage. There's a very weird thing at the moment. I was looking up some data that at the moment, 34% of men worldwide will marry someone higher educated than themselves.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's quite fascinating. And I think also, if you look at the roles we played as young married women, and you look at the roles of today, and you look at how the feminine role has changed so much. It's not about, just keeping your happy little home. It's a case of anything you can do, mate, I can do better. And so those roles have really changed. And that statistic on the education just really threw me, that men choose women, not all men, but people would like a partner who's more educated than them. And I suppose that's another whole topic in itself.
That's really come to the fore today, where women are highly educated, have fantastic jobs, and then look for a man who's got to help build them up. And sometimes they can't find them. And a lot of women are struggling today to find a man, because I've got another friend who's highly educated, absolutely fantastic at her job. And she doesn't have a man in life because she says she intimidates them. And she said, I don't want to intimidate them. I want a person that can actually be with me. But these men just see her as strong and powerful and think, whew, I'm going to just give her a bit of a wide berth. But I think we've got marriage is such an important thing, and it's so important, as we have both found, to have someone to spend your life with. And people say to me, what's the greatest thing that's ever happened to you? And I said, having a partner that I can spend my whole life with, and now that I've grown old with, and it can still be there, we can be there to support each other. And I think in lots of marriages today, women don't realize that they're there to support their husband, but their husband must be there to support them as well. And it's really, really important to find that person. And sometimes it happens by accident, but sometimes you've got to know what you're looking for to make sure that you get it. But now I want to change it and say, I think if women are often so emotional, and I think women control the emotional temperament of the house. How do you see that, and how's it been? I mean, you have a very placid husband, but he's also of French origin, so he's got that French sort of what difference to him from us. So just tell us about that and what you think about that.
I think you find a course for your marriage, intentionally or unintentionally,
Yeah.
where you complement each other.
Yeah.
And I think Ivan is placid, and he's the one that brings the humor. And I look also at the age gap between us, and possibly when we met, I was a more serious or mature 20-year-old, and he was perhaps an immature mid 30s, and somehow that balanced itself out.
Yeah.
But I think there again, if you think of all those years of being together, and I just come from a fun perspective, I really do. I was unashamedly attracted to him. And if you think about it, you go from that first attraction, and then you sort of 6 or 7 years in, and you kind of think, good God, what did we do? Why did we do this? And you kind of recalibrate for the next decade, as it were. I think that's very important. In the same way, I would say, Margaret, that you've always had your goals, etc., for your business career. I think marriages need the same revamp every now and again. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think so. Now, when I think of you, I always, and to the women out there, the first thing, if you go out on your own, you've got to go and find a job. Now, to me, finding a job is the worst thing ever. And the reason I started my business is that I never, ever wanted to go and look for a job again. So, but you used to love going for interviews. Whenever I thought, I'm just going for an interview for another job, and I think, oh my God, that would be the worst thing in my life. And you absolutely loved it. And you were always going for interviews and getting different jobs and swapping and climbing up that ladder. And to the women out there, and there's one in particular at the moment who I'm thinking of, whose husband has just left her. And I said to her yesterday, you've got to go out and find a job. And she said, I just don't have the courage to do that. How did you get yourself, when you sort of prepared yourself for an interview, and you would go and you would enjoy the interview, which I always think, oh my God, I would hate that. But you would enjoy the interview, and you would always get the job because you did such a good job of telling them how you'd be able to help them to improve their business.
Just prepare yourself. And the other thing I think, Margaret, that comes across is confidence.
Yeah.
If you go in there not foolishly, but you go in there feeling pretty confident, I've got some pretty good qualities that I can offer this crowd. Yeah. So let me hone in on those and bring them to their attention. Yes. Without doing it in a proud or a inappropriate way. Yeah. So it just really boosts yourself. Say to yourself, I am this wonderful person. I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty wonderful all the same. Yeah. I know we all have those days when you wake up and you think, who are you fooling?
You do, but as women, we have that imposter syndrome, and we just have to get over it to make sure that we can get up and get out there and present our best self to the people that we be doing. Sometimes we try and present our worst self, because in our generation, we were taught to not blow our own trumpet. We were taught not to be full of ourselves. Where now things have changed completely. The children are taught to be full of themselves. They're taught to have that confidence, and they're taught to be able to talk about the attributes and tell people how good they are, which we could never do in the old days, but now we're learning.
Definitely. And then I would just come back to that thing of self-confidence as well, and in an appropriate manner. Because if you're feeling good about yourself, you can portray yourself in the best way you know how. Hugely important, whether it's a job interview or to your prospective partner, whichever.
Yes, absolutely. You've got to put your best foot forward. And have you ever been for an interview where you really felt, oh, I'm so out of my depth now? And I just had to laugh again when I thought about you going for an interview with your heart monitor in your handbag that might go off at any moment. And you think, I hope this heart monitor doesn't go off while I'm in the middle of my interview. But you're still in the 70s going to apply for jobs and just hoping the heart monitor doesn't interrupt the whole interview.
And that's when I say you've got to do things appropriately because there you are putting your best foot forward and you're just hoping that you're not going to come unstuck. That was particularly hilarious. But I look again at all those job interviews and the different checkered career that I've had. And variety is the spice of life. It really is. I had an incredibly stable home setup and family setup. And so for me, as soon as I mastered a particular role, then it was time to sort of have your antennae up and be looking around as to what else might bring you some sort of interest and challenge. That's the other thing, is the challenge. And I've also, in these later years, what I've enjoyed is, even though it's been very hard work, having been an immigrant to Australia, it's I've really enjoyed being mature enough to be able to encourage younger people to be the best at what they're doing.
Yeah.
Not to settle on their laurels. And I'd like to sort of facilitate that, sometimes even to my own detriment. But I just see someone and I think, gee, you've got X, Y, Z qualities and you're not even really aware of it. I'm going to create a situation where you can come to the fore and really show what it is about.
Yeah.
Because I think the workplace has changed so much as well. So, every day brings something different and exciting.
So to the woman who's sitting out there now, and the one I'm thinking in particular who just was blindsided yesterday, her husband walked out, she got her divorce papers yesterday, she's got to go out now and find a job, and she doesn't have that confidence. What would you say to her to actually get her to get that confidence to go out? And I just said, just put that makeup on, put it on like your war paint, put your prettiest dress on, stick high heels on, and go out and look for that job. But when she gets there, she's, well, I don't know what to say anymore. Life has changed so much. What would you say to her?
I would say, as much as you've encouraged her, as you said, I would just say, on the other hand, also be very realistic and be totally honest.
Yes.
People sitting on the other side of that interview desk, they've been doing it for ages. They know their game. They can see little red flags. And of course, we all know about the absolute no-no. And that is, if you're leaving one company to go to another, it doesn't matter what happened at the previous company. You never talk badly of a previous employer. Never.
Yeah.
So that's just one little tip. Don't ever do that. But the other thing is, say to yourself in a very real manner, X, Y, Z are the things that I excel at. That if you put me in a lineup with 10 other people, I could beat them hands down at it. But on the other hand, I'm not a figures person. That would be my worst nightmare, is to sit with accountancy and whatnot. Admit that to you. Don't pretend, oh yes, I can just wrap that up, I'll do that. Don't do that, because it's going to make you feel uncomfortable while you're pretending. You've just got to be totally honest. They're looking for a certain kind of person, and they'll find their person, and it could just be you. But boost yourself. Even with having had a failed marriage and some trauma, try and throw that over your shoulder for the day. Just put it in another file and feel proud of who and what you are and how far you've come. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, that's true. Now, let's go to your passion. Your passion, although you've done so many different jobs in your life, from being PR at a school to selling jewelry to running a shop. Tell us about your passion, which is art, because you are artistic. You do paint, and now you found your passion in the art gallery where you act as a guide to people, which I think is so important because other people just walk past paintings and there's oh, there's another painting, whereas you actually you can teach them about art, and it's your passion, and that's what you're doing now.
Yes, art has played a huge part in my life. I think early on in our marriage as well, when Ivan was busy being the wonderful musician that he is, I then really indulged myself in my passion for art, and I got very involved in sculpture and other things. Okay, then life moved on a few decades, and we find ourselves in Australia, and there is the most incredible, yeah, globally rated art gallery here. And I am a guide, a tour guide, which involves a huge commitment. But it's a strange thing. And yet I must say, I've heard you say this before, Margaret, that you're not working when you're doing what you love.
Yeah.
And so that huge commitment. And I mean, if I'm giving a tour, I've got to put a theme to it. I've got to know what I'm talking about. I've got to have the facts. I've got to have some background about the artist. So that actually brings me to a place where I've got to study it. You've got to research it and study it.
Yeah.
And then it's like putting on a show because you get total strangers arriving, and they could be honorary professors, they could be teenagers who are there just to see and be introduced to the whole idea of contemporary art, or be it cultural art, or be it Renaissance art, whatever it is. So you've got to be able to curtail your tour to your audience. And what I always say when I have a group, I'm actually not here to give you a history of art tour. I love art. We all bring to art who we are. So just take, for example, you and I, you have certain likes in art and I have others. When you view a new painting or a new artwork, you are bringing your history and your art identity with you to understand what you're looking at. So you're going to see things that I might not see, and I might relate to things very positively that you might not, whoever people are. So no one's there to judge you. What I like to say is, come with me. I'm going to give you lots of information, and then we're both going to have a chat about your response to what it is you've seen. And what's fantastic is that in the same way that I love helping that young person find what's good for them, I will often have a member of the public who will bring their perspective of what they're looking at, which is something that I might not even have considered before. And that's exciting. That's exciting when you're both sort of on the same page of excitement about what you're viewing. And you don't have to like every piece that you show, but you just giving people variety. Variety, as I've said previously, I think in the last few minutes, is the spice of life.
Absolutely. So I think things have changed so much. And if I'd have told you 50 years ago you'd be an art guide today, you'd say, surely not me, but there you are, and you're doing it and so well as well. So, but tell us a bit about painting, because, I think everybody needs something as an outlet. I meditate a lot, and that's my outlet. I walk a lot, and that's an outlet. But I think painting is such a fabulous outlet where you can express yourself and go into that stillness of actually creating something, and then look at it afterwards and just admire it. Tell us a bit about that.
Like you just said, I firmly believe that within everyone there is a creative gene. And you've got to find your path, what actually as you might say, blows your head back, what it is that you like about art. So I've dabbled in lots of different art practices. And I've done sculpture, I've done painting, I did a bit of jewelry making. Some people can look on fashion as art. So I think you have to experiment with different things and find what it is that's good for you. And it's interesting, over the time, over the years, my major interests have changed. So at one stage when I was back in South Africa, I was really, really into sculpture, which was just so exciting. Then, having moved, I thoroughly enjoyed the creativity of running our own little art gallery in New Zealand. And that was exciting. And helping current artists actually sell their work. And wow, I've done so much, Margaret. I even then got into engraving on stone, which was with a little Dremel tool, which is like engraving on jewelry. And I've done a few pieces of that, which really moved me. At different times, different things. Now, in these days, I've found that I've suddenly got very involved in creating my own designs on a two-dimensional surface. And having had contact with a fantastic mentor back in South Africa who's sort of guided me in a lot of my art over the years, he just said suddenly, he said, that's great, but you've done it in monotone. Why don't you do yourself a favor and do it in color? And that was all he said. And that sentence sort of worried me for a few days. And then I sat down and I did a madly colorful piece. And it gave me such a high. And that's what art can do for you. So at the moment, that's what I'm working on. And then I've just 2 or 3 days ago, I got stuck into some oil pastels. And let me tell you, you haven't seen color like this before.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. It's just amazing that you have that creativity. I think everybody has to experiment with it and just see what happens. But let's talk about now getting older, where our bodies actually let us down, and I get so cross with my body when it lets me down because it's been such a good body up till now, and then I have the occasion where it lets you down, and you've had a couple of instances lately where your body's let you down, and you can tell people about your voice. Your voice it went off completely, and then you had injections in your throat, and now your voice has come back, and you've had all these other challenges, but you've just laughed through the whole lot, and you've got to the other side, and you just carry on regardless. And I think as older women, we can get bogged down in what's wrong with us and our blood pressure and our heart this and that, the next thing. How do you navigate through your body letting you down and just getting over that hump and getting to the other side?
Margaret, I don't think it's easy. It's not easy for anybody. But the biggest hurdle for me was accepting the aging process.
Yeah.
I still mentally, I'm not quite there. But I think the sooner one actually does that, the better, because it takes away some of the stress of it. Just accept it. And once that acceptance comes this enormous gratitude. Such gratitude. How fortunate are we?
Yes.
Even with our little physical challenges and whatever, how fortunate are we that we can actually wake up to another beautiful day every day? So put your sorrows in file 13 and just get with it and make the most of it. I do find that I also have a very strong commitment around it's up to you. It's no good sort of sitting around and saying, woe is me and the world's miserable and all those sorts of things. And yet we all can have a sick day every now and again. But I think once one gets over that sort of physical health challenge, it's up to you. And so I've enlisted a whole exercise regime, and like yourself, I enjoy swimming, and and sometimes not always just for the fun of it. It's this is good exercise, and so that's what I'm doing, and I'm very careful with my diet. Not to say that I can't lose a good few kilos, but I try to stick to a Mediterranean diet. I think all those things add up, and yet strangely, I look again at our generation, and maybe that point sank home a bit late.
Yeah.
You're just too busy having too much fun in those earlier years.
Yeah, one of the things I admire about you is that your attitude to aging. I mean, you and I still feel like we're 20, and and that's in my mind, I'm still 26. So, and I think that's the most important thing. Because you seem genuinely excited about this chapter of your life, because you went through a stage of working, then not working, then working again, and now that you're not working, you've got time to indulge yourself in all the things that you wanted to do. And I think that's really important when you look forward to aging, to say, oh my goodness, I love the Afrikaans word off which means the place where you go to when you're about to jump off. But but I think with us, we're enjoying our retirement such a lot. I mean, I know I am, and I know you are as well. But there's so much still to look forward to. So tell us about your projection for yourself going forward, and how you see yourself going forward in life, because there's still so much that we have to do.
Hugely so, and that's where the gratitude comes in. But with the we've got to have energy to enjoy life, and so it's that health and the physical side of things. But then I also look at how fortunate we are to be with our married partners at this stage of our lives, and I think that whole relationship. I mean, you've gone from the crazy first physical attraction and all of that in those early years, and you're in a place where, if I think about it, it becomes your identity. You've actually shared this road with all your ups and downs. You've seen each other at your worst and at your best, and it brings with it. Not only gratitude, but it brings a huge sense of security. Sometimes when I walk down the road with my husband, it's almost like walking together with an archive of your life.
Yeah.
And so how fortunate are we that we've got that, to share that? And I look at people who are on their own, and I admire them for their resilience, but it's such fun.
It's such fun having someone to share your life with. It really is. Now, as I said at the beginning, you always start your sentence with "I had to laugh at," and so I love that positivity about you. And some people really find it hard to be positive because there's so much negativity going around. But you've always been so positive about your marriage, your family, your career changes, your health scares, and all that type of thing. You've always come out laughing at the end of it. So, what has your life taught you about resilience and about just laughing through all the trials and tribulations that you've gone through?
Wow. That's a huge question as well. I look at it, and I just look at all those ups and downs, and all lives have had ups and downs and have had beautiful moments.
Yeah.
So dwell on the beauty, dwell on the positive. I'm an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how dark and ugly that cloud gets. Just keep looking. Look at it from a different perspective. You'll see some of a little silver lining coming through. And I think when I think about that, and I think, where does that come from? It must have come from my family life as a child, and from my parents who influenced me to have that attitude. And then I've just been very fortunate to be able to carry that on. And you look at it and look, the time ahead of us is going to be different. I don't always look at it as being, it's got to be difficult. It's just going to be different. The challenges are going to be different. You're going to have to keep your same spirit as best you can, and that relies on your health. So, that humor, that laughter. Got to keep it going.
Absolutely. Well, Anne-Marie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And I think what makes your journey so inspiring is not the longevity of your marriage, but your resilience through difficult situations and your creative reinvention, which came out later in life, although it was the thread right through your life. Now you can really indulge yourself. But it's the way you approach everything with your warmth, your humor, and your courage and perspective. Your perspective on things is so amazing. So you just remind us that life doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be beautiful anyway, and that love can last. And I think that's what I want to get through to the woman watching. It's up to you. Your love can last, but you absolutely have to have that undying love in the beginning. I think you have to love unconditionally. You can't say I love you, but if you do this or do that, that can't be the way either. So I think that both of us have found that and have found a fantastic marriage. And the fact that we've both been married over 50 years in this day and age is amazing. That we've brought up beautiful children who are just so precious to us. And just that we've been friends for such a long time. It's just amazing. So thank you for being my friend for such a long time, over 50 years now. And thank you for being on the show today and for inspiring all the other women out there to know that you can make it happen, girls. You don't have to, there's nothing special about us, but we've made it happen. You can make it happen too. So Anne-Marie, what's your parting shot to all the women out there who are thinking, oh, it's okay for them. They're okay. You've been through the hard times. You've been through the times with no money, with lots of money, with all sorts of things. And you've just come out smiling all the time, just with such a positive attitude.
Margaret, I think I'd like to say out there, the other thing that's really valuable in one's life is your friends. And I look at our friendship, and you gave me some wonderful compliments there. And it just made me think, why are we friends? Because in so many ways, we are so similar. But anyone would know, in so many other ways, we are worlds apart. And yet we've made our friendship last, and it's happened so easily. And I thank you for that. So people out there, friends are really valuable. They're there for whatever you need them for, and you've got to be a good friend as well. But then when I look at my marriage, and I look at over 50 years, if I had to put it in a nutshell, how would I describe it? And I think I'd like to borrow from one of my favorite authors here, who's Elaine de Botton. He talks about marriage, and I think this applies to mine particularly, where ours has been a crucible of learning. Now, I happen to know, and everyone else will know, that a crucible is actually a container or a vessel where hot metals are poured so that they can mix to become one. And I think that kind of puts it in a nutshell for me. And overriding all of that is a huge big placard that says gratitude. So Margaret, thank you. And to all the ladies out there and men out there who are looking for a partner, I wish you good luck. The world's a wonderful place and it's full of wonderful people. How on earth are you going to choose just one?
Thank you so much. Well, so those of you who enjoyed the chat, please subscribe, and then I'll see you next week for another amazing chat with another amazing lady. It's going to be fabulous. So stay tuned, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.